where are we with our FFP naughty step teams? Derby and Sheffield Wednesday have been charged this season. We don't need to go into the whys and wherefores. In fact, I would direct people to your podcast, particularly on Derby, because I remember you doing a good bit. I mean, in fact, I remember driving around the M25 listening to that, Kieran, trying to understand all the business of. Oh, have the EFL actually got this wrong? But there you go. Look, Kieran, I get a lot of fans on my comments. I say something like, "Oh, and we don't know how many points Derby or Sheffield Wednesday may be deducted," and they comment back and they saying, "Ben, we've been charged, but we haven't been found guilty yet." Do they have a point there? And is there any precedent for charges being dropped?
Um, not charges being dropped, and ultimately, of course, we got habeas corpus, innocent until proven guilty. The accusations have been made by the EFL. You would have hoped that the decision would have been made by now because the charges were made a few months ago. What we have seen, however, is that the EFL appealed against Birmingham being mitigated because there was a second charge against Birmingham and they were released, and the EFL appealed against that and they've lost. The EFL appealed because it's all done by an independent tribunal. The EFL has also appealed against some of the deductions against the likes of Macclesfield and Bolton, saying they weren't severe enough. The EFL have lost those, and the EFL did charge the owner, chief executive, and I think the finance director of Sheffield Wednesday in relation to financial fair play, disclosure issues and things of that nature. And those charges were dropped fairly quietly last month. So that went up on the Sheffield Wednesday website. Funnily enough, didn't see it appearing on the EFL website. So I think that the fans of both of those clubs will take heart that it's not going to be a kangaroo court, So I think the feeling of both Sheffield Wednesday and Derby fans is that the EFL is judge, jury, executioner. It's not. The tribunal who make that final decision are independently appointed. They will look at the evidence. I happen to know the QC who's operating on behalf of Sheffield Wednesday. In my mind, and I don't know whether anybody has heard of this guy, it's a guy called Nick DeMarco. He was the QC for Queens Park Rangers when he got
Sounds like he's from The Sopranos or something, Kieran.
Well, he is. I think his grandfather owned an Italian ice cream shop in Brighton.
Beautiful. There you go. Beautiful.
But Nick, in my opinion, is the football law version of Lionel Messi. If anybody can get these clubs off, Nick can. He knows his stuff superbly. I've had Twitter conversations with him. He's an incredibly professional guy, but he's also an incredibly good guy as well. So he will do his damnedest for his clients. So nothing is finalised as yet. I think that the case against Sheffield Wednesday has more in favour of it. If Sheffield Wednesday get off, I think Derby certainly will. If Sheffield Wednesday get found guilty, I think Derby still potentially have a chance. So that's where we are at present. We don't know what's going to happen in terms of the championship, but if a points deduction is given on the basis of paying 37 games or however many we're up to in the championship, clearly that's going to have a disproportionate impact upon the final league positions of those two clubs. Because if you think about it, if you knock 15 points off a team that's played 37 games, you compare that to 15 points of a club that's played 46 games, that potentially could have a far more severe effect. So, that might be even a case for some form of mitigation or some form of appeal should the rulings go against those two clubs.
What a mess. And you could get a points deduction and then avoided season, which everyone else will be up in arms and say, well, they got away with it. Oh, dear. There we go. What do you think the future of FFP is when we get back? Because everyone's going to be broke, and you're going to have somebody waving a big stick saying, "Don't make losses, don't spend." Do you think there's going to be some tweaks or some kind of? I take it there won't be FFP from March the 13th through this lockdown, but what happens with it going forward?
Um, Ultimately, it's the decision which has to be made by the owners. Because the EFL, like the Premier League, is a members' club. So at present, FFP is still in existence for 2019-20, and until we hear otherwise, it will be applied. Yet the thought of potentially losing clubs going out of business, which is a reality, because even post-pandemic, clubs haven't got money coming in and they've still got wages to pay. It does seem, to me, intuitively, it makes sense to drop FFP for this season and potentially next season. Let's just focus on having 92 clubs. Rather than the application of rules, which, if we're honest, the rules have proven to be farcical, given the nature of the transactions that clubs have undertaken. And my reservation has always been, and I think you're probably aware of this, is that I have taught a little bit of law in my life, and certainly the first thing I always say to people: for every rule, there's a loophole. The clubs have rich owners; they will employ smart accountants who will find those loopholes, as we have seen in the case of Villa, Sheffield Wednesday, Derby, West Ham, and so on. All these clubs which have started selling assets to mitigate financial fair play, as well as some of the other crazy stuff as well.